Rock and Roll Geek Show 1172.
Still rocking after all these years.
This is the story of my rock and roll butler.
This is it, the show that started it all. Often imitated, but never equal. From San Francisco, USA. Online since 2004. It's the one and only Rock and Roll Geek Show. With the original Rock and Roll Geek, Michael Butler.
Welcome to the Rock and Roll Geek Show. My name is Michael Butler. Thanks a lot for joining me. I really appreciate it. Today is Friday, October 7th, 2022, and it is 10:23 a.m. when I'm recording this episode. I just got off the phone with two people from Creem Magazine, Jaan Uhelszki, if I'm pronouncing that right. I always get that. The last name is very difficult for me for some reason. And Dan Morrissey, both work at Creem. Jan was around in the glory days of Creem Magazine, and Dan is working there currently. They both work there currently, but Dan just came on board when they launched they relaunched. It's called Creem Entertainment, which means more than just a magazine, but the print edition is back of Creem Magazine. I'm still waiting on my first copy. I'm a fan club member, and that's the highest form of membership. If you have not seen it, I suggest you check it out at creem.com. It looks really good, and I'm sure you know about Creem back in the 70s. If you're a friend of this show, I'm sure you have seen many issues of Creem, but it was the best magazine back then by far of any magazine. Creem and Roxine were my two go-tos. You know, I read Circus as well, but Creem was the best and Roxine had the sense of humor too. Creem had everything. They had all the cool bands, they had sense of humor, they had the captions. You don't need me to explain this to you. You know Creem Magazine, they were iconic. So I just got off the phone with Jaan Uhelszki and Dan Morrissey. They talked to me for a little under an hour. Man, I was so fucking nervous. I don't know why I get nervous doing these interviews, but I am much more comfortable just sitting in front of this thing, spinning tunes and just talking rock with you, friends. But this was an interview that I lined up. It's good for me to do these things, even though I get nervous. I don't know why I get nervous. Doesn't matter who I'm talking to. I'm like a kid. I don't know what it is, but so hopefully my nervousness didn't come through, but now that I said it, you will be listening from my nervousness during this interview. But I think it went pretty good. I tried not to ask the same questions that every other person asks people, you know, because there's lots of interviews with Jan out there, and a lot of them talk about when she got on stage with Kiss. She was the only person ever to get on stage with Kiss, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Several podcasts have interviewed her, and I tried to make it a little bit different. So take that with what you want, because that could mean it's good, and it could mean it's bad, or it could mean it's just a train wreck, or it could mean it's uncomfortable. Maybe it's all of those. So I'm going to shut up and let the interview speak for itself. Creem.com. Go there and you can look at all the past issues. You can read every old issue cover to cover on this thing. It's archived in PDF format. It's a well put together site. I wish rockandrollgeek.com looked as good as this. It's well done. The writing in the new magazine is well done. They still do the hilarious captions, and it's got everything you remember from Creem Magazine. I really hope this thing succeeds, because we need more of that in our lives, friends. So before we get into the Creem interview, I'm going to play a song. This is a brand new album by Liar Thief Bandit from Sweden, from Morslow, Sweden, or somewhere like that. You know how I feel about Swedish bands. They have a new record. It's kind of a mini album. It's a half hour long, so it's a little bit longer than an EP, a little shorter than a full album. It is called Diamonds. I'm going to play the single, at least that's what the PR company that sent me this. Actually, Kirk Crawford also did not send me this, because that would have been wrong. But the PR company also sent me this. This is the single. It's called Peace with Disaster from Liar Thief Bandit. I'm going to let this play, and then we'll go right into the Creem Magazine interview. Here's Liar Thief Bandit. So you're going out of your way on a
Oh no, we love this stuff. Are you kidding me?
Oh yeah, we love this stuff.
So Jan, all right, I'm mispronouncing your last name.
Okay, it's really easy. It's like go to Uhelszki. Uhelszki. You just break it down and you ignore the Z.
Jaan Uhelszki and Dan Morrissey. Thank you so much for coming on the Rock and Roll Geek Show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm sure I'm about the 500,000th person who said this, at least to you, Jan. Creem was pretty much shaped my entire life. And when I was a 16-year-old kid in high school, you know, you had your homework in those folders. You know, you put your homework as Peaches. That's what they're called. Well, my Peachy was the latest issue of Creem Magazine. I had like several Creem magazines, and each class I had the homework assignments in another Creem magazine. I'm sure.
I hope that was good juju. I love that. You know, it shaped my life too, because I was a teenager and I was getting to write for them. You know, I was determined to do it, and I was going to do it. And honestly, it just that, and prior to that, 16 magazine, you know, it showed me how to live. Like, that's when magazines did that.
How old were you when you started writing for Creem?
I started working there before I started writing. I started working there when I was 19, and it took me about a year and a half to get published, because they hired me as the T-shirt seller and then the subscription kid. I didn't care. It's like I was going to infiltrate any way I could and then start writing.
So as a T-shirt seller, you didn't walk around with T-shirts saying, "Hey, you want to buy a T-shirt or anything?" You just like,
oh
did the
boy,
mail
I
order?
did. Yeah, I got in. I was going out with the art director, and he brought me to the Creem offices, and Barry Kramer, who was the publisher, was an irascible, confrontational, charismatic man, and he would greet anyone who came into the door like, "What the fuck are you doing here?" And I was like, "Well, I'm not the Tooth Fairy." God knows where that came from. It was such a cliche. And I just, out of my mouth, I was managing a head shop boutique in a mall, and I said, I knew that they had ceased publishing because they ran out of money, and I ran this boutique for a woman who traveled in France all the time. And I said, well, I think I could make you some money. I could create a T-shirt division for you, and I won't even take a cut. I'll sell them in my head shop, and I have a teenage sister, and I'm going to send her door to door with her friends and sell it. And he actually agreed, and I was like going, oh my God, I'm on top of the world. So I started it up. I like started selling them. I gave this arsenal of like teens and preteens a bunch of T-shirts, and they sold $1,000 worth.
What was the first shirt design?
It was the Boy Howdy.
Oh, it was. Okay.
Well, the one they had done them prior to that, and they'd stopped that. So it's just the logo.
Yeah, just the boy.
That was all that's all we made, and that's all we sold. And then obviously they took it over and, you know, started using that. It's like a, you know, it's kind of like selling merch as a rock band. You go on the road and you make no money, but you make a ton on merch.
Right. Do you still have any of those original Boy Howdy shirts?
I have one really ugly one. The one that's Mr. Dream.
Oh, you mean the Dream Whip?
I can.
The Gloop.
Yeah, the Dream Whip one.
Shirt.
Yeah.
I have that
I
Gloop
have
shirt
that
too from a long time ago.
Yeah, me too, with rust stains. I never have worn a Creem T-shirt except to dye my hair so I wouldn't get it on my real clothes, because it's like, how could I? Like, it just seems a little too obvious.
But Jan, I'm wearing one right now.
You are?
Aww. Yeah. And then I noticed that this is audio only. So not only am I being obvious, but I'm being obvious for no reason.
That's so like meta.
Yeah. Well, you never know. I could be watching you on video, so you got to look cool while the video's going. Yeah. So I did not wear a T-shirt. I should have. First of all, I was probably a Kickstarter donor for the documentary. I didn't know if I saw my name. I don't know if I saw my name on the documentary or not.
Yeah, it would be it would be on that list of a zillion names. God bless every zillion one of you for doing that. We would never made the movie.
Also, I purchased the documentary twice. I purchased it again last night because I couldn't find my login info. So I watched it again last night. I also am a fan club subscriber for Creem, for the new Creem, which, by the way, that's what we're talking about. Is the new Creem just came out, and I bought two of the. I don't know. I probably bought about $1,000 worth of merch as well. So I'm a Creem supporter. I hope everybody else is too.
Yeah, me too.
Well, the important question is, do you have a copy of issue 1?
I have not received my new copy. I've read it cover to cover, but I've not received the print edition yet because I was a fan club.
In the mail.
I was a fan club subscriber maybe a month ago, so maybe I'm still waiting for my 8 to 10 weeks delivery.
Oh yeah, that would be the case.
So
yeah.
Dan, where did you come from before? Were you? You don't look like, because I can see on the video, you don't look like someone who grew up in the '70s. So how?
I did grow up in the 70s, actually.
Oh, okay.
In fact, my earliest memory of Cream was a cover that was on my brother's wall of Kiss when they were wearing in the kind of like the Civil War garb, the drum and the bloody bandage.
The 1976 bicentennial cover. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one. So I would have been 4 years. I would have been 4 years old at the time, and he would have been 8.
Yeah.
Which tracks because I was an insane Kiss fan from the age of, as much as you can be when you're still in single digits, from about 1976 to 1981.
Yeah, that's how everybody got into rock and roll, probably was Kiss.
Yeah, and it was under my older brother's tutelage, which is also how a lot of people get into rock and roll.
So 4 years old at 76, what makes you about 30?
50.
I don't know. Math ain't me forte. 50.
I'm 50. I'll take 30, but
so
I'm 50.
Where'd you come from before you came to Creem Magazine for new Creem?
In publishing? Well, I worked at Entertainment Weekly for 22 years, right up until I signed on with Creem. So it was just this great stroke of luck that the print version of Entertainment Weekly folded in February, which is where I had been working for over 2 decades. And I reached out to our CEO, John Martin, to see what was kicking around with Creem. And he gave me the lay of the land, and I just jumped right in. It's been great. I've been there ever since.
So you had heard that Creem was relaunching, and you approached them?
Yeah, I knew that because I knew something about it because I knew that the archives were being repurposed a few months earlier, and I was asked to help work on that, but I was so busy at Entertainment Weekly that I couldn't. But I'm glad that I was asked because it put Creem on my radar. It made me aware that it was happening, and I was really excited about it. And then just, the stars aligned, and the Entertainment Weekly thing came to an end as it needed to, and there was a new beginning, and I couldn't have been happier about what that beginning was.
So both of you, is this your full-time job working for Creem now? 9 to 5 job or whatever?
For me, yes.
It is. So that means they must have investors, right?
I would kill for it to be 9 to 5.
So does Creem have?
That would make it a part-time job at Creem.
Yeah. So does Creem have investors? Are people invested in the finance? Because you got to have money to launch this thing, especially with I've seen pictures. Friends of the show, people who listen to the show, have sent pictures of their first issue, and it looks like a really quality, like coffee table type issue.
Yeah, it's right here. It's not visual, but yeah.
That's Ray Pettibon that did the cover for Greg Ginn's brother from Black Flag, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, he put that together especially for us.
So my point was, it takes a lot of money to launch something nice like that, and you have a pretty big staff. So do you have investors?
Well, I don't really know the details of the investors. Jen might, but I'm not really in that field. And our staff, comparatively, to where I was, is tiny. I think we just broke 10. So,
okay.
So I consider it a pretty small staff. It's a quarterly magazine. There are 4 issues to build a year, but at the same time, we're creating digital content that could easily go into the magazine. So we're all working hard, but it's the kind of work that we love to do. So that makes it easy. As far as the investment, though, I can't speak to that just because I don't know the numbers.
I was reading the J.J. Kramer's little thing at the beginning of the magazine. He said he was he went to the launch party for this book here that I also have, by the way. He went to the launch party for that book, and he actually crashed the party.
Yeah, I love that story. Yeah, Jan, do you know about that? I knew it
yeah,
when
I do know
when he
about that.
submitted it. Yeah,
Are you
it's a
kidding?
great
Like
story.
Robert Matthew was,
photographer.
Yeah, he got the rights. He acted propitiously and got the rights, and there was a lot of ways we tried to resurrect it a lot since it had its untimely death, and JJ was in the process of trying to put it all back together then. He took him decades to do this, but he went to the launch party, and I haven't read that letter, but as I remember when it was happening in real time, they got into a fist fight, and Robert Matthau was signing the book, and he put permanent marker on JJ's face. So JJ was walking around with like black marker, and it got ugly, and it was ugly for a really long time, except up until right before Bob Matthau died, and he had gotten clean and sober and made amends and got in touch with everybody he felt that he had wronged. So it was a funny, strange, tragic story. His involvement of Creem.
How did Robert Matthau get the rights? Who owned them before that? I guess Barry's wife, right?
Well, she had sold the magazine.
That's right. To L.A.
to the gentleman who did Nylon. I guess Marvin Jarrett. And then other publishing companies had one other one. Carney Publishing had licensed them and put out an oversized coffee table looking magazine for about a year, maybe. And then they had fallen, no one was doing it again. And he scooped him up. His cousin was a entertainment lawyer, and they went and got it. And at the same time, Dave Marsh, who I worked with originally, and Ben Edmonds, part of the original staff, and the guy who did the Alanis Morissette Broadway play, Vivek Tulwak, we were like a consortium, and we were trying to get the rights, and we were going to do it again. So it was just a matter of timing.
Yeah. So I want to hear more about this fight. You know a lot about it. So JJ walks into the party, and there's a security guard there, and says, "You can't come in here. You're not invited. Your name's not on the list." And he said, "Motherfucker, I'm the original owner's son." How did it? Do you know anything about it?
I wasn't there. I mean, I know what you did. I read about it in like page 6.
You weren't invited to the party either.
Well, I lived in California. They lived in New York.
I thought Robert Matthau lived in California too. I thought he was an LA guy.
But this party, I believe, happened in New York because he was on the book tour for that coffee table book.
Have you seen that coffee table book?
I have an article that may I mention? Yes. I never got paid for. My Led Zeppelin pieces in there.
Oh, nice.
I have not been Creem family since probably the day I walked in those doors.
I mean, it's a good-looking book. It's got lots of good articles and good pictures and stuff. It's got backstage section and all that. When did you leave Creem?
I left on March 15th, 1976.
Oh, 76, early days. Why'd you leave?
Yeah, and I fell in love.
Not with the art director of Creem.
No, he had unfortunately slept with my best friend. So I had met a photographer on a story and had a long distance relationship and thought it was love. And one should always know long distance relationships are an illusion. But it got me to LA, and that was like the next chapter. And I was the LA editor for a while, and I continued my columns, and I was Confessions of a Film Fox, and later I was Kiss and Tell. So I still worked for them in some capacity. Again, like I just have, this is like where I started. It's like my, where salmons go to spawn. I just always had to touch home base with Detroit and Creem.
In that documentary, it said there were several people in the magazine that worked at the magazine. When you guys moved to the country, a lot of the guys and girls were in relationships with each other, and you all lived on that farm together, ranch together. How'd that work out? That must have been weird.
terrible.
like Fleetwood
Oh my
Mac.
God,
That's my favorite part of the movie too.
it was terrible. Okay, so we had two farmhouses. We had a giant guard dog to guard where the offices were, who had attacked Barry Kramer and the art director. Oh, that's so sad. So
Right.
so this big dog mauled the two of them, and we were crunched together in little rooms that was like this desperate landscape. It looked like a Andrew Wyeth painting. Like, it was just terrible. It was like an old like lake town that had nothing in it. To go to town, we had to get in one of the cars that we shared. I had a car, and Connie Kramer had a car, and we had horses. It's like every day I would drive everyone to the post office. Lester always insisted we go try to find burritos. Okay, finding burritos in rural Michigan is not an easy feat. We were fighting constantly. It's like if you wanted to go anywhere, it was like an hour and a half ride. All we had to each other. It was, can you imagine working 24/7, being with the same people you work with all the time? It's like, it was, but I also think out of that rancor, like something really great emerged, because that was the beginning of what people call the golden age, when things just really heated up, and we got braver and bolder and funnier. So I have to say, that's all we had to do was work.
Yeah,
so
what year was that?
That was, I think we moved out there in 71.
Oh, well,
and
way
we
early
stayed
days.
so we stayed till 73, and then we moved back to civilization.
Why'd Barry want to move to, I guess he'd buy a house there and he didn't want to pay for the office, so he just said everybody can come?
No, what happened was Detroit just got super ugly. Post those riots, we had, I guess they now call them the Detroit insurrection, but in the late 60s, there was a riot that went on for a week in Detroit. So it never rebuilt in the way. And it was really scary. When you parked your car and went up to the office, people were mauling you. They were pulling at your purse. It was tough and scary. And Detroiters aren't easily scared, because you're kind of used to that in downtown Detroit. But it just got to the point, it was just too much. And his wife, then girlfriend, his wife had horses. So it seemed like kill two birds with one stone kind of situation. The rent was cheap, and we got those two houses. So, got a lot of land, not that matters. What does land have to do with publishing? But, it was a kind of the back to the land 70s movement anyway.
Oh, yeah.
So, and we lived together. It was like, basically, we were not a cult, but we were
a commune.
We were a commune.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, actually. Did everybody?
Dan, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to step on your toes. I'm curious about the guard dog. It seemed like you would need the guard dog in Detroit, but not out in the country. Was that just a case of prolonged paranoia?
Okay, there was a guard dog in Detroit, but some of the locals poisoned the dog.
Huh.
So guard dogs made sense to Barry. So when we moved there, we had gotten broken into, and they'd stolen some things. So it's kind of like, shut the barn door kind of situation. So Connie found a dog. Connie, Barry's wife, found a dog that was especially vicious and bought it.
German Shepherd?
That German Shepherd, and the German Shepherd liked women, did not like men. So the thing was, it was like, when I say it was empty fields and empty landscape, you couldn't tell if somebody was coming to steal your stuff if you weren't at that location. And that's what would happen. So, really, there were no buildings. It was desperate, terrible, gray. So
That's a great chapter in the history.
Yeah.
Those crazy 3 years.
In that documentary, Lester Bangs had a dog, and he shit on the floor, I think in Dave Marsh's room or something like that. And was that at the farmhouse?
That was at the office. The office had living space, but that was at the office where the guard dog had lived. Yeah, Lester had Muffin,
What kind of dog was Muffin?
Muffin was a mutt, like a part poodle mutt. It's really funny.
Dog.
I just found a picture of the two of the dogs yesterday, which has been lost for eternity. And David had a black and white dog that was kind of like a junkyard dog. Like Muffin was cute, Gloria was ugly. And we one morning, like Muffin was untrained, like as your dog is your, shares the same attributes as the master. Lester was super messy, and so was Muffin. So she would always defecate on the office floor. So when you came in the morning, you had to really watch where you stepped. And one morning, Dave had it, and he picked up the pile of shit and put it right on top of Lester's IBM selector. And Lester came in, and Lester didn't have a particularly bad temper. I mean, actually, he was really good-natured, but that just set him off. And he went stalking because he kind of had this, he was a big guy with a lot of bulk, and found David, who was a little guy, like same height I am, like 5'6", 5'7", and just pretty much took him by the neck and said, expletives, how dare you? And they started right in the office, right in front of my desk. They started going at it, and it tumbled out to the outside driveway that was really gravelly, and it got uglier, and David got a gash in his head. So I would like to say that was unusual. It was not. There were a lot of fist fights. I mean, it was like the Oasis brothers. It was always something.
The fist fights and stuff is probably contributes to why Creem was probably such an entertaining magazine, because it was like a real rock and roll band, like Guns N' Roses or whoever, any of these bands who fight all the time.
100% of it's like that.
Probably.
I mean, I have
when I go in on Monday, who should I take out?
Yeah.
Or who should I let clean my clock?
Fred.
It's really a question of who should I get beaten up?
You joke about that, but the tension in the offices can do a lot for, creativity. So maybe you guys should try to get some tension going in that office.
We'll see. I guess I just love my coworkers too much.
Yeah, well.
I'll try to figure out a way around that problem.
Okay, the difference is when we started, Ben Edmonds, who was one of our editors, used to say, none of us really like each other. There's no reason we should all be together. And it was really one of those things, none of us were alike. I mean, we ended with a bond, but even at the end, all that rancor and tension was always there. So
was there times when Creem was rolling in dough and you guys were able to like throw big parties and live it up on Creem's dime? I know that one story in the thing where Lester Banks threw a big party on Creem's dime.
Yeah, that was crazy. The money really didn't roll in. Like Lester and I and Robert Duncan, by the time 1976 rolled around when I left, and Lester left a few months after me, they were just beginning to make money. Before we used to get $22.75 communal money, no staff bucks. We were communists, It was like everything was, we were one. And the thing was that was just a little too much. What we had started to have is we had a suite at the St. Moritz Hotel. I think it was the St. Moritz Hotel on Park Avenue West in New York. And, Lester, whoever came into town could stay there rather than paying hotel bills, and Lester took advantage of that. But again, he was a brave big guy, and I think he did that because he knew it would piss off Barry Kramer. It would lead to his demise. It's kind of one of those things. It's like you don't want to quit, so you have to create a situation to get fired. Yeah. And I always thought that's what that was.
So you guys had an apartment in New York that would you put up when you guys would go to a show in New York, and that's where you guys would crash or something like that?
Yeah, because it was easy. I mean, Detroit, we may have thought Detroit was the center of the universe, but it wasn't. So you'd have to go to New York a lot to do your interviews with somebody, that.
A lot of, there were like Ted Nugent, Alice Cooper, Susie Quadro. There were a few. Did they always come into the offices of in Michigan?
Yeah, what happened with with us is that one of our investors was Russ Gibbs. He owned the Grandy Ballroom, which was like the Fillmore.
Right.
So that Barry Kramer used to have a little stand for his head shop, and we sold creams right there. So there was a real flow of knowing all the bands. We knew everybody because it was like a very small scene. So yeah, like Susie Quattro, Barry Kramer went out with Susie Quattro for a while. So Susie Quattro was there, and the local bands like the Scott Richard Case and the MC5 all the time because they just lived down the street. So it really was that. When I say we were one, we really were one. It was like, it was, if it wasn't like hippie-esque, because Detroit, again, was not a gentle town, but there was that whole sense of we were a subculture. It was us against them. It was really like the end of the 60s. So there's still that overhang like, oh yeah, this is what it's like. It really was the wild in the streets, don't trust anyone over 30 kind of mentality in the beginning.
In the new issue, you do the Q&A section, right?
Me personally,
in the current issue, it says Jan does the Q&A.
Oh, I do the advice column.
Yeah, the advice column, yeah.
That was Dan's great idea. I want to call it Jansters and Dancers because I answer questions from readers.
It's called questions and Jansers.
Oh, questions and
but
Jansers.
Jan calls it Jansers and Dancers.
Are those questions real?
I get to edit it for it.
Yeah.
Are those real questions from listener or from viewer or whatever, readers?
Those are real questions.
You talk about date, and there's at the end of each answer, when you give the answer, you'll relate a story about, a humorous story. And one of the stories, because somebody wrote about, I'm dating the same guy, I'm dating my friend's ex, and you talk about Susie Quattro. You were interviewing Susie Quattro, and she wasn't giving you any good answers. And and you bonded. How you bonded because you said you dated the same guy as Susie Quattro.
I did.
Yeah.
Who is now a famous like interventional radiologist. Who wins medals in France. Dr. Steve Smith.
Steve Smith.
And somehow, Steve Janney Smith, descended from the Mayflower, and that like opened it up because she's a tough girl. Like, she's a tough rocker anyway, but she's the one that you think she's kind of a girl hater, like not women on women crime, but not the friendliest human in the world. And, but that was like a breakthrough. Like, to this day, we're friendly because of that moment. Huh. So,
and you guys still talk to that guy?
We both talk to that guy.
You're
actually
still in touch with that guy. That's cool.
What's the timeline on that? She went out with Barry Kramer and the radiologist.
Yeah, that's kind of a difference in
people.
Well, it was small. It was a small scene out there.
Yeah, it's like you either went out with then they had those charming names of straights and heads.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. The heads and the nerds or whatever.
Really, if you were in the music scene, you really weren't dating civilians. You were dating people that you met at the Grandy Ballroom, like our Fillmore experiment, or other people in the scene. So it was a very small pool. Okay.
Well, how'd you meet a radiologist? Would you have a doctor's appointment or something?
I was at the Grandy Ballroom, and it was right before I had worked there, and I was with some of my girlfriends, and I've never even told this story. And we had this big black hat, and we were asking people for money. We were panhandling, so we'd have enough money for a ticket. And he gave me money and asked for my phone number. Huh. So
I'll give you money if you give me your phone number. What concert?
Yeah, right.
What concert was it?
It might be the most late 60s story I've ever heard in my life.
I think it was Blue Cheer.
Blue Cheer, okay. That's all right.
Did you hitchhike that night too, just to get the trifecta?
I'm really embarrassed to say yes.
Well,
yes.
Well, two girls.
I didn't have a car. I was 16.
Yeah, you could hitchhike back then. It wasn't as
What
bad
Tarantino movie is this from?
I know.
Interesting that.
Okay, now I'm even blushing. I'm really embarrassed about this ghetto past of mine.
Was that guy a doctor back then?
Oh, he just said he was.
Because a doctor going to a Blue Cheer concert, that's kind of,
Yeah.
it's not that
No,
common.
he
I
was
would
just
think.
his dad was the doctor. Actually, his father was the doctor for Henry Ford, the man who started all of the car things.
He was a rich
So
kid.
the rich kids. Susie Quattro too. They lived in Grosse Pointe, which is the finer part of Detroit, where all the auto money is. And they went to school together. They went to junior high together.
Were you a rich
And
kid too? Apparently
I
not.
am,
If you were
I am not. Oh
panhandling.
no, my dad worked for Ford's.
Oh, okay.
He made the doors. So this is a man who, when you grow up in an auto town, everything is like an auto metaphor. My dad made doors, so to this day I have to buy cars with big doors. But the only advice my dad ever gave me is don't eat when you drive. And I said, wait, why? And he goes, because you look stupid. So that's how my life is run by auto metaphors. The worst thing is, here's a very short aside. My mother, who was a dancer, had similar advice, which was equally pithy. Hers was, don't date saxophone players and never try heroin. Those were the things I grew up with.
I wonder what's wrong with saxophone players.
I don't know.
I guess sax players probably traditionally were the guys who did the drugs back then, the old days, I would imagine.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the drummers or whatever.
Well, everybody dates. The thing about women is you tend to be attracted to certain personality types, and those personality types play a particular instrument. Like
Right.
Lucinda Williams always went out with bass players. I tended to go out with bass players too. Like bigger personality women go out with drummers. So it works that way.
Going out with bass players, when you were doing pieces for Creem and stuff, because you interviewed a lot of rock stars and stuff, did any of them hit on you?
Yeah, but the thing was, is early on, I was on the road with Steve Miller, and he said to me after making a pass at me, and I said, no, I have a boyfriend. And he said, that was just a test. In fact, I'm going to give you a piece of advice, little lady.
It was a test that Steve Miller failed.
Yeah,
he failed.
Exactly.
I passed. and he said, how in the world, if you sleep with a musician, how will you be able to stick the microphone in his face the next morning? He won't talk. So I thought, that's actually really good advice. But it's more so, it's like, everyone already thought you were a groupie, because there were no female rock critics. There were a few, So you had to really play it, safe, clean, and not fumble.
I would imagine the rock stars hit on the women, because I remember seeing Ted Nugent. There was a Cal Jam, and the female DJ or whatever she was interviewer says, "What are you guys doing?" And he goes, "Your legs," and he would hit like. So I would imagine that especially back then, all the musicians hit on the female reporters or whatever.
They pretty much did. One time I was going to interview Rick Wakeman, and he answered the door in a towel, and I said to him, "Don't you want to put some clothes on?" He said no. So we did the interview with him in a towel. So
yeah, there's an article.
I wouldn't fly today.
In the new magazine, in the new issue of Creem, there's a guy. I hope I'm not giving too much away, but buy the magazine, everybody. It's a great issue. A guy wants to interview Iggy Pop in the bathroom, in the bathtub.
Yeah.
Excuse me, in the bathtub naked.
Oh right, yeah.
So I'm really.
That might be.
Go ahead.
That never happened.
No, that's my favorite piece. I love that piece.
Yeah, is that an old proposal for the magazine or a current proposal?
Dan, you take this one.
Okay, so that was something that our editorial director Dave Carney came up with, and he sort of revived it for issue 1. Oh, okay. Don't be surprised if you see something like it again, because we just sort of fell in love with the idea of these ridiculous proposals that, put these rock stars, see how outrageous these rock stars can really be.
Yeah, that was what was cool of Creem back in the old days, things it would do. Like Lester Bangs got on stage and wrote a review of Jay Giles' band while he's on stage with Jay Giles' band. Of course, the legendary Jan gets on stage with Kiss. We talked about a million times. That kind of stuff really set Creem apart from all the other magazines.
Well, I mean, the 70s, there was that sense of participatory journalism anyway. But the closest so far we've come is Dave Carney in the bathtub with Iggy, But I guarantee there'll be more of that. I think the sense of Creem then and now is that we are the readers and we are out there doing what they would want us to do or think those questions that you want to ask but don't, just those normal awkward kind of situations, like taking a rock star or a musician of any sort out of their comfort zone and seeing, like, putting on their microscope and seeing how they actually react when there's no safety net, there's no, like glitterati trappings. I think is fascinating.
Yeah, there's this guy who does interviews now. His name is Nardwar. You ever hear of that guy?
I love him. Oh my God, he's my hero.
He does that. Yeah, he's pretty funny. Who are you? The one of the cool things about the magazine, which you're still doing, which I'm really glad, is the captions. You've always had these really humorous captions. Did you do the captions, Jen, back in the old days?
I did. Well, it was a collaboration. We tended to work kind of like, and I always think it's like this, like the early Saturday Night Live, like writers' room, is we all were in one room. So we'd have the pictures, the photos, and we'd pass them around and we'd riff off of each other. But we do a little of that anyway. Like, Dan is a genius with captions. Like, to me, he's like the soul of the old Creem. So he'll start it up and he'll go, what about this? What about this? So I think they get funny. Oh, you're so good at it. And I think that they grow in stature and they grow in funniness when you have more people like working off of them.
What's a day at Creem nowadays? I know what it was like back in the old days, but currently, what's a day at Creem Magazine? You guys have meetings every day?
We don't all meet every day, but there are meetings every day, depending on, different people will attend different meetings. But we have an office in New York where a bunch of us are. And then, Jan's on the West Coast, with Dave Carney's on the West Coast, and we've got, JJ, and, we're all spread out across the country, but we're in contact all day. We still have that collaborative way of handling things like captions and just, ideas, design ideas, pitch ideas. Everything is done, in a group setting, if not in the same room.
What was the first
different times?
What was the first meeting today that Creem Magazine had?
I have one in 21 minutes. I can't speak for Jan.
I don't have one till Tuesday. So,
Dan, who's your meeting with today? Can you tell me?
Yeah, I'm meeting with the chairman, the CEO, and the editorial director. And we're doing a rundown of issue 2.
Oh, it's not.
And I'm excited for it.
You don't have to do financials or anything like that. Yeah.
No, that was yesterday morning.
Is there pressure to make this thing successful at a certain period of time, like within a time frame?
We have goals. Yeah, our goal is to surpass 10,000 subscribers this year, and we're well on our way to surpassing it.
So that's not that much pressure, is it? There's not. You don't have like investors. You have to. I forget it. It's money talk. I mean, is there like?
Well, I mean, it's not that it's just I'm not informed on the financial matters, but I do know that we have a goal of 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I also know that we're all very comfortably approaching that goal, and we'll surpass it.
What's your official job title there?
I'm the executive editor.
Executive editor. What's an executive?
Well, basically, I'm responsible for making sure that, in this case, October 31st, that we have a magazine to put out. So I am sort of a quarterback and but I really do all kinds of things. I bring pitches, I field pitches, we talk, I handle the budget, I created the process through which the stories are edited and conceived and photographed and designed, and it's a group effort. But I'm just sort of I'm in charge of making sure that every little box gets checked off. So when the 3-month cycle is up, we have a 128-page beautiful piece of art to send to our subscribers.
When is the next issue supposed to come out?
That will be in subscribers' hands on December 15th.
December 15th. You have everything lined up as far as the things that are going to be in the new issue?
We do. Yeah, we do. I would say we're about 90% there. We like to leave a little bit of wiggle room, but this is our big push month to execute all the stories. Yeah.
What's the cover going to be? Can you tell me?
Well, the thing,
No.
I can't say anything about the cover except that we're staying consistent with the idea of we didn't put anyone on the cover of issue 1. As you saw, it was a piece of art by Pettibon, and we're staying in that vein for the time being.
One of the favorite things that I used to always like was the backstage, the gossip section of the in the classic Creem. I didn't see that in the most recent issue. Any thoughts about bringing that back?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I did another show, The Kiss. It was 3 sides of the coin.
Oh, yeah.
If I'm
Yeah, I know those guys. Too many.
if I'm allowed
hosts
to make. Yeah, right.
Yeah, I know those guys. Fuck those guys.
They brought
I'm
up backstage
kidding.
as well.
I'm kidding. Fuck those guys.
Yeah,
Well, I
I'll
think
bet you
that's
guys.
right, because we did a presentation at the Grammy Museum a couple of weeks ago, and we took audience questions, and everybody wants backstage. So I think that we should absolutely revisit that, because that was really compressed gossip, and totally made up, but actually strangely prophetic. Like things that we would write captions and funny bits about would oddly come true.
It was also cool because there were pictures of them like at parties and things like that, so it actually looked like they were backstage.
Yeah, they usually were. We would ask photographers to send us like the outtakes from when they went to shoot a show. Like Bob Gruen would send all the party photos that he had, and we'd send our staff photographer to parties to just shoot like that. So it was serendipitous and strategic.
Yeah. Do you like if people wanted to, I'm not a writer, I can't write for shit, but if somebody was a writer and had articles and stuff to submit, you guys take submissions?
We do.
Absolutely. Yes. Editor@creem.com would be the place to send those submissions. And now that since we were talking about questions and answers, that is also the email address to send questions for life advice from Jan, which is, I'll say it again, editor@creem.com.
Jan, are you doing any other articles for the new Creem, or is that
I
it?
am. No, at first I came as just kind of like the spirit animal editor to make sure it was true to the old Creem, and I would read the pieces that came in. I still do, to make sure they have that zip, that high standard, that crazy sense of humor. But the more I worked, the more I realized I'm still invested in it. So yeah, I've got a few pieces in an upcoming issue, and it's like I have a code of silence, so I can't say. I can talk about dance.
Is this your full-time job?
It's turned into my full-time job. I just did a piece for Uncut where I worked for the last 10 years as a correspondent. But, I'm so invested in outcome. I want it to continue on because, again, it's like my school. It's like my kindergarten. It's like it's formed who I am as a writer. And it's I want to be more and more a part of it, more than I even thought I would. I think the same thing happening with the documentary. I put the two principles together, And that was it. I thought, I'm done. But they kept calling me and asking me questions. So at the end, they just said, why don't you just become a partner? So I did. And the same is true of Creem. I think the funny part is I have to sometimes amp up my writing because all these years since Creem, had its untimely demise, I've been writing in a different world, where you don't get to express yourself. You can't use the personal pronoun. You can't go over the top and say what you really think. So I really had to relearn creamisms myself.
Yeah. Why can't you say you should be able to say what you really think?
Well, when you work for a newspaper, when I did things for USA Today or the San Francisco Chronicle, or even the British magazines I've been writing for a long time, it's more straight reporting.
Yeah.
It's opinion, and you don't let your personality, or it really, to me, the thing about Creem is you're telling the truth as you see it. I always call it, if thought balloons could kill, the things you're thinking at Creem, you actually put on the page.
Yeah, that's what's so great about Creem.
Right. That's it in a nutshell. Other places I worked, you just keep on thinking them.
I would imagine it would, in the thoughts of putting this out, putting this magazine back together, it would be difficult to find people with that sensibility in the business world, because they'd all be worried about, saying the wrong thing and getting canceled or whatever.
Well, strangely, the thing that I noticed when I came on, and a lot of the staff were already there. I think I came shortly after Dan did, was a full-time employee. I think that everybody there has, again, the criteria for Creem the first time, big personalities. That was it. There were no other qualifications. You could write, you had an opinion. You had a big opinion that you either wrote about things you loved or hated. What I noticed is every single person that I've read and met has similar personalities, but we were primitives. We didn't know what we were doing. We had no background in journalism. I was taking journalism classes at the college, but that was it. I wrote since I was in 4th grade. All of us were like that. This one is everybody has skills. They have been in high profile places, like Dan at EW for all those years, and Fred Pissarro at Vice, and Dave Carney at Big Brother, and Maria Sherman at NPR. It's there's credentials here and there's gifts, but the real thing is they all have that whack sense of humor that, okay, we're going for it. And we don't care what you think. It's not like at Creem, we had this thing, rock stars are not our friends. It's here, it's refined to publicists are not our friends either. It's we're not trying to make friends. We're just trying to be the emissaries for the fans, for people who want to know what's really going on. So it's a concern, but not a concern.
Well, I really hope the magazine is a success because, like I said, it was a big part of my life. I read that there was a music festival. You guys are going to do music festivals too. Is that going to still happen?
I think that's part of the plan. I mean, J.J. Kramer calls it Creem Entertainment. You go on, Dan. You probably know more than I do.
Well, I was just going to say, I don't know about the specific festival. I know that we're planning events around Creem, and this is an entertainment company, not just a magazine. So we want to branch out into every considerable field that we can. Wherever we can be emissaries, as Jan said.
Well, I hope it's a success. Dan and Jen, I really thank you a lot for doing this. Is there a timeline? Will next year, October next year, if you have the same amount of subscribers or maybe a little bit more, will you still be around?
I like how you lifted your shirt to signify more subscribers.
I forgot I'm on video. I apologize. I hope I don't do a guy from CNN deal.
It reminded me of a Motley Crue video, when there's always someone in the audience who does that.
I get that's why
they're usually they're female.
They're usually women.
Although
I actually did that. I did that at an Aerosmith concert once just to antagonize Steven Tyler.
Oh.
I on my way into the venue, someone gave me a front row seat, It's a long story why or how, but anyways, I found myself at the front row center of an Aerosmith concert, and I was the only male in the entire front row. So it was obvious that this guy had screwed up by giving me this ticket. And I spent the whole show with my shirt pulled up over my face just to piss off Steven Tyler, because I knew he didn't like seeing me there.
I puked down the front of my shirt at a Boston concert because the girl that I was with, I didn't want her to see me throw up, so I can relate.
Yeah, you make weird decisions in that.
Yeah. This is why I mostly do audio interviews, because I do things with my hands. Sometimes I had to use the bathroom and I'll have to use a cup, and fortunately I didn't have to use the bathroom this time.
No, you look very rock starian, and you've got perfect glasses. Like I want you to like take a picture of your glasses. I want them.
Yeah.
We'll
nice. Get into the door coast, but anyway, I really thank you guys for doing this. I hope you have all the success in the world. You didn't answer my question about if you're still next year. If you have a couple,
I interrupted your question.
Yes.
Where do we want to be next October?
No,
we just want to keep getting.
If next a year from now, if you only have a little bit more or closely the same subscribers and as you have now, will you be looking for a new job, or will Creem still be going? How long are they giving you guys?
Oh God, I have no idea how to answer that question. We don't really think along those lines. At least I don't. We're just trying to put out the best magazine we can. Right. And I will say this: having issue 2 about 95% in the can, I can say that the magazine is getting better and better and better. So I'm not really worried about a year from now or 5 years from now. I'm just worried about the next 3 months.
Please God, let them be around next year, because I
have a good feeling we'll be back next year.
That's good. I hope so. You guys drink beer and stuff in the office?
Yeah, actually, someone brought by 2 bottles of vodka the other day.
Is there who's the
just
boss? Who's the boss?
I think they wanted a T-shirt.
Who's the boss in the office?
Who's the what?
Who's the boss? Like, is there a guy that?
Our boss comes in. Our boss comes in on Zoom. We just go in and work.
Oh, good. Okay, so you actually go into the office in New York? Danny?
I do, yeah. Yeah, we have a spot in Williamsburg. There's usually about 4 or 5 of us in there.
You're not in the office right now, because I see somebody who looks like your mom walking around in the background. Is that your mom?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, well, I mean, I didn't want to distract my colleagues, so I'm doing this from home.
Okay.
I'm only 5 minutes away from the office.
You live with your mom?
Yeah. That is my mom. No, my mom is visiting.
I'm a fan of grown men living with their mother, actually. I wish my grown son still lived with her. I wish my grown daughter lived with her.
I would do it in a second. All
right, Jan and Dan.
My husband might protest, but I would do it in a second.
Thank you guys for doing this. Just Creem.com? Is it just Creem.com how we can get there?
2 E's, of course.
What are the different levels? Do you know the different levels of subscriptions? Because I'm the top, the fan club, which I'm waiting for my free merch that's supposed to come. I don't know. I have no idea what it is. I hope it's not just a more rock and roll, less assholes bumper sticker, because I already have one of those. But what are the different levels?
The different subscription levels, I don't know. Okay, so we have a digital service. It's $5 a month. That includes, it's got the digital and archive access, and you also eventually the print magazine is digitized, and then 10% off the Creem shop. That's $5 a month, and then we have a print and digital subscription, which is $79 a year. Members of that subscription are entitled to 4 issues of Creem, a year of digital and archive access, and 15% off the Creem shop. That's where all that great T-shirt merch and other merchandise is. And then, as you said, the fan club, which is $129 a year, annual gift of a $60 value, all 4 issues of Creem Magazine, a year of digital and archive access, 20% off the Creem shop. So I'd go for the fan club.
Yeah, I would too.
If I didn't already work there, I'd go for the fan club.
I did. I'm going to have to go there now and buy some more crap. It's not crap. I'm just joking. I'm going to have to go there and buy some more merch from Creem. All right. Thank you guys for doing this. I wish you all the success in the world, because we need more things like Creem Magazine in our life. In all parts of our life, we need more Creem magazines.
Well, thank you so much for having us.
Agreed. Yeah, thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the rest of your day, and hopefully we'll see each other sometime in real life.
Yep.
All right. Bye.
Next October.
Yes.
Bye.
All right. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
According to another
All right. There you go. Creem Magazine. I hope you enjoyed that, friends. Jaan Uhelszki and Dan Morrissey. I sometimes ask silly questions, but you know how that is. That's your friend Michael Butler in action, friends. All right. Why don't we close out with a song? What can we close out with today? Before I do that, thank you for listening to the Rock and Roll Geek Show. You know how to find me, rockandrollgeek.com. Thanks, Jaan Uhelszki and Dan Morrissey again for coming on. Creem.com. I know some of you already have the magazine. Find the show at rockandrollgeek.com. Find me on the Facebook, R&R Geek. Find the Rock and Roll Geek Facebook group. Find me on the Instagram, Rock and Roll Geek. Don't ask. rockandrollgeek@gmail.com. Let Jan and Dan know that you heard them on the Rock and Roll Geek Show, so they don't... I'm sure they're talking right now about that guy was a complete moron. So let them know you heard about him on the Rock and Roll Geek Show, so they don't think they wasted 56 minutes of their time on this dumb podcast. All right, friends, let's close out with... what do I want to play? How about... There's a band called Lorne Behrman, or it's an artist called Lorne Behrman who's on Spaghetti Town Records. I'm going to play something from his new album that's called A Little Midnight. This is something called Love Stumbles By. Let's do Harlem River Serenade. Thank you for listening, friends. I'll talk to you soon. I'm going to be talking to the guy who wrote that book. He did the photo book. My friend Steve Toomey he lives in the Bay Area. I played in the Cheap Trick band with him for a short period of time. I never did a gig, but I did a couple of practices with them, and he's got a new book that's really good. He snuck cameras into rock and roll concerts in the 80s and took a bunch of really good pictures by sneaking a camera in, and it should be a fun time to talk to him. Thank you for listening, friends. Please keep the donations coming, because as you know, without your donations, this show would die a horrible, putrid, stench-filled death. I'll talk to you soon. Here is Lorne Behrman.
Glass, tearing down a desperate path. Ain't gon' break, ain't gon' break. Just gonna sing this Harlem River Serenade. Ain't gon' beg, ain't gon' break. Just gonna sing this Harlem River Serenade. Birthdays pass like these quiet hulking chips. It gets easier as the years go by. I hate you and then I don't. I hate you and then I don't. I hate you and then I don't. Ain't gon' break, ain't gon' beg. Just gonna sing this Harlem River Serenade. Ain't gon' beg, ain't gon' break. Just gonna sing this Harlem River Serenade. Looking out at factories as planters, green reaching through the bricks. There's no hope there. We're shattered like broken bottles on train tracks. Ain't gon' break, ain't gon' beg. Just gonna sing this Harlem River Serenade. Ain't gon' break, ain't gon' beg. Just gonna sing this Harlem River Serenade. sing this Harlem River serenade. Ain't gon' break, ain't gon' beg. Just gonna sing this Harlem River serenade. Ain't gon' break, ain't gon' beg. Just gonna sing this Harlem River serenade.
It's a rock and roll geek train wreck.